Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite. Voices like the park, fans dripped in jerseys. Legacy bold, the metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and on X. And whew, that was a rough one yesterday, Mets fans, as the New York Mets lose 8-7 in extra. In the ninth inning, and it just wasn't very good at all. To be quite honest with you, it started off absolutely perfect, 6-0. Then it was 6-1, nothing to worry about, doing so well, and all of a sudden, things started to unravel. Couple of runs here, big 3-run homer here. Ninth inning came along, and we lose. That's how fast it actually. Well, it was a slow process. Like, it was just slow. It was little cuts, and then slate me a throw it at the end. That's what it was. It was little cuts to give you a little bit of pain, a little bit of a worry, a worrisome atmosphere, getting that worry going, and all of a sudden, that's it, done. So. But, the offense did what they had to do. You score 7 runs, you should win a ball game. Now, I know a lot of people saying, well, they scored 6 in the first inning. They should have tacked on runs. Yeah, sure. They should have tacked on runs. But the pitching can also hold the 7-run lead or a 6-run lead or even a 5-run lead. They need to hold on to that big time. And that was the concerning thing overall. It was a mess yesterday, right? It was bad defense. It was... after the first 2 innings or first inning, there was really nothing except for that extra that 7th run of the ball game. So it wasn't anything. Again, the pitchers got to hold a 6-run lead, a 5-run lead. They just have to. And as good as the bullpen is, and this was my concern early part of the season. And yeah, I did check the numbers. The Mets are 10th in bullpen innings, so that's almost the middle of the pack, but they're in the top 10. I've always concerned myself when the starting pitching wasn't going deep early, and it was the first 3 weeks of the season, it was constantly using too much of the bullpen. And this is what happens when your bullpen gets overused. And you could be the 10th, you could be the 5th, you can be the 1st. The fact is, they pitched almost 50 innings so far this year. And that has been where the Mets were going to find. And look, it only took it to the end of April for the bullpen to be overworked. And you could say, yeah, Mendoza has done a good job with mixing and matching, not using guys a lot on back-to-back days and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Delays, lack of off days, it was going to catch up to you. And this is what was my problem the first couple of weeks of the season, where you had one guy who might have went 6 innings, but almost for 2 weeks, we had one guy go 6 innings. So when you're constantly losing 4 or 5 guys, and then you fall into a situation, even though you were winning a lot of those games, where you had a 13-day stretch of no off days, well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to use a ton of bullpen. And now A.J. Minter's hurt, so Danny Young's in your bullpen. And now with A.J. Minter hurt, you have to go to guys that you're going to have to use a little bit more. And that is the biggest problem that I always fall into, I can care less what the pitching lab does. The pitching lab doesn't work for overuse. And this is the problem, right? The guys can be great. They can look they can look different. They can turn, Reed Garrett into a gem, and that's fine. But it doesn't make up for the overuse. That the pitching lab can't fix that. How does that get fixed? Well, that gets better starters. You can tell me whatever you want about the starting pitching. Okay, it's Tyler McGill, it's Griffin Cannon. There's not one person that wants them to in a rotation. I'm sorry, they're fringe rotation guys, maybe fifth starters at best. Maybe if you have a 6-man rotation, one of those guys will be in there, and we can go to all these guys. But eventually, the guys that we always knew these guys were, and that is Tyler McGill. Again, he didn't pitch. He did not deserve to not get a win yesterday. So I'm not killing him, but we know what McGill does. He'll pitch well for 2 months, and when it comes to June, July, and August, he'll be a no-show. At the end of August, he'll look like he'll show some life. He'll pitch well in September, and then that's it. And then he's in the bullpen in the playoffs. So for the other almost 3.5, 4 months, he's terrible. And why do we think that he's going to be anything better? The pitching lab was there last year. He had the same issue he had 2 years ago. Griffin Cannon is a guy who was the worst starting pitcher in baseball that pitched every 5th day. So do we expect him to be a little bit better? Yeah, but I think that's circumstance over at lab, to be quite honest with you. And the bullpen that is top 10 in usage is going to catch up to you, and it's only April 28th. And everybody can say, well, come on now. It's not really that. They had the off day. They didn't really have off days. Yeah, but again, look at these guys. How many guys have worked 4 or 5 times a week? It was constant. And that was even with the pitchers, the starting pitching going a little bit deeper into games. But again, those first, I would say 2.5 to 3 weeks of the season, when we played about 20 games or so, 21 games or so, 22 games, were used heavily. And they were in the top 5 before they were in the top 10. That is overusage. And I don't care how good your bullpen is or might be. And the names are there. We know we were going to have a good bullpen. But you can't overuse them in April. For all the credit that Mendoza has got when he put the bullpen guys in, it eventually is going to get to you. Stanek looks like, last year Stanek before he got traded to the Mets. That's the way he looks. It's not like he never closed before. This has happened a few days. This happened a couple of times already with Stanek. Diaz is a hit or miss. He looked good on Saturday, which was nice. But, Jose Butto is not the same player, not the same pitcher he was when he first came up last year. He's not the same. He looks terrible. Overall, Braziban has been good still. Again, Butto was just terrible. It comes to the point now where it's like you have to talk about getting Nunez back here because he's going to fill into that Minter spot, even though he's not a lefty, but Nunez can get righties or lefties out. Again, you're working with Danny Young, who's the only lefty in the bullpen. I don't think many people want to see Danny Young in big situations against left-handers, even though he's pitched better than he did in the beginning of the season. But you can't trust Jose Butto. And I go back to this all the time, even though I get killed for it. It takes a full year to really see the repercussions of using a guy so much. And the following year is when you really get an idea of what these guys can do. This goes to Jose Butto. He's pitched a lot of innings last year. I know he started in the minors a lot. Well, yeah, committee, yeah. How long until really? There's a possibility he might not be ready this year. He's coming back from Tommy John, and there's a possibility he could come back in July and August, but there's no guarantee that that's going to work out. So you can't rely on that. You got to work internally of what you actually have that can pitch. So, it's Danny Young, it's Genesis Cabrera, which I'm not sure if they're going to bring him up over Nunez. Maybe they still will until Nunez is 100% ready to go. So that was the biggest issue. And committee, why was Diaz not available? Because remember, he just came back from that kind of hip spasm or whatever you want to call it, whatever issue he had that day. And they took him out of the ball game. They're not going to pitch him back to back for at least a little bit. So that's why Stanek is in the game. But that's no excuse. That isn't. Stanek has been a closer. Stanek was good early on in the season. He had a couple of, the last few outings have been a little rough. But overall, you got to get the job done, right? It's next man up at this point. So I understand people wanted Diaz in that ball game, but again, if you don't know what caused that issue with the hip, the side, or whatever it was with Diaz, you're not pitching him back-to-back days to lose him for a couple of months. So you're not going to do that. You get the job done. It's not like he threw Danny Young in that situation. All right, he doing Ryan Stanek. All right, he's supposed to be one of your better bullpen arms and one of your possible closer options if Diaz is not available. He got to get the job done. Committee, yeah, I agree. Diaz looked good on Sunday. I agree. But that doesn't mean they want to pitch him back-to-back days coming right off that hip issue or whatever it was, that side issue. So it's, again, they were there. It just doesn't make any sense, and why I was getting killed for the situation that I was talking about the lack of going longer into games with the starters. And it didn't happen for the first 3 weeks, almost the 3 weeks of the season, when you had basically one starter go 6 innings. Like, that catches up to you rather quickly. And that doesn't account for injuries, guys like Diaz, who is not officially on the IO but still on the roster, but kind of weary about him going back to back. So I agree, committee. Minter is looking disastrous right now. I agree. But you know what? Here's the other issue. We don't know how these guys come back from injuries. Minter had the hip situation similar to what David Peterson had. Both lefties, right? David Peterson has still looked good. But again, Minter's coming back from that's kind of a major injury for a pitcher, especially a bullpen arm that has to get up and down and not know when he's going to pitch. At least for a starter, okay, I'm pitching on that day. I'm going to start my routine. Minter, he doesn't know. He knows that. Yeah, Raley's not going to be available anytime soon. So don't even talk about Raley. Raley, if everything works out, and this is him throwing, this is him rehabbing, this is him doing his bullpens, he has to stay healthy through all of that before we even talk about Raley. Raley's not even a thought right now. If he will be, maybe late July into August. So we got a few months before even that. So Raley's not an issue. The fact of the matter is, how can nobody foresee this? I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now since the season has started. I don't care, and this is why I want guys that can give you innings. Now, the reason why the Mets got Montas, not because he's a great pitcher, but if everybody loves the pitching lab and all of a sudden loves Griffin Cannon and, loves Tyler McGill all of a sudden, at least Frankie Montas is the major league pitcher. Maybe the lab can help him out a little bit, pitching a little bit better. But the reason why Montas was brought here was because he's an innings eater. Same thing about Griffin Cannon, by the way, even though he hasn't shown us much of that since he's been a Met. But he usually gives you innings. He gave the Angels 169, 170 innings last year. So even though he didn't pitch well, he gave you innings. And that actually matters. I know pitching well matters, obviously. So the Mets are trying to hit lightning in a bottle twice. Hopefully the pitching lab to get Griffin Cannon to pitch a little bit better, which he is. It's not great. It's not really good. It's a little bit above average. And he gives you innings. But he hasn't really gave us the innings that they probably were expecting. Tyler McGill is a hit or miss when it comes to innings. David Peterson could do it, but we'll see. Kodai Senga, I always worry every day when he goes out there every 6, 7, 8 day, because you still got to baby him around and pitch every 6th day and give it every off day you possibly can, and then hopefully gives you 6 innings. And we just go around the horn. And Clay Holmes, I still don't know what to get from Clay Holmes, to be quite honest with you. The strikeouts are up from all these pitchers. Great. If that's all you care about with the pitching lab. Again, the pitching lab doesn't help you with length at all. It just doesn't. There's no model for that. There's no analytic numbers, because here's the problem. Major League Baseball don't care about that. But what they also seem to never figure out is, why am I using my bullpen so much and they're overused by the month of April, by the month of May? Why is that? We didn't have Minter a full month. guys are slowly looking worse and worse. Even Brazaban, who's outstanding, has had a couple of cracks. Stanek has been a couple of cracks. Diaz has been, hit or miss every time he comes out. Who knows what you're going to get from him? So the bullpen can be good, but nobody accounted for the usage that they were going to have, especially early in the season. Now, I understand that the usage was going to be a little high for the bullpen the first couple of weeks of the season because it's early in the season. But that does not make me wrong about the fact that they needed to go a little bit longer. You know what? How about this? How about pushing guys a little bit further earlier in the season so maybe you can not use your bullpen so much? And what about May? Maybe June. You might take them out a little early. How about that? I know it's kind of outside the box, and God forbid they don't think about that. But overall, it's not looking good for the bullpen. It's really not. Like, can you name anybody that you really, really trust in this bullpen right now? Because it's not there. So overall, the usage worries me. And I've complained about that. And this is why you need real starting pitching. At least one or two. I'm talking about guys, and again, forget me with Kodai Senga. All right. Everybody can stop at Kodai Senga. He'll be great for 4 or 5 innings. And then, we'll hope for a 6th inning. But he's never going to give you a length that you need almost every outing. All right. I'm not saying every guy can give you 6 or 7 innings. But again, when you get a workhorse, and that's why you pay big money for guys who are really good and he will also give you innings. All right. There's a reason for that. All right. I know baseball has gone away from using starting pitching so much and using a bullpen, but that doesn't mean it's successful. Somebody's got to win a game. Somebody's got to win the division. Somebody's got to win the playoffs, and somebody's got to win the World Series. So somebody's going to win doesn't mean that that's a successful model. And it's been frustrating me because it makes no sense. When a pitcher is pitching well, I don't care how many pitches he has. Keep him out there. What is wrong with that? If you want to have somebody ready because he has 107 pitches, great. All right, I understand that. But it's just they're leaning so much more towards heavily using the bullpen like it's a successful model. And I've said this for a while now, and if you've been on my channel for a while, you've heard me say this. This is a business model. This isn't a baseball model. Who gets paid a lot when it comes to pitchers? Starting pitching. Why do some bullpen guys want to be starting pitchers? Because the money's there. The same reason why baseball is telling you that, well, I don't care if 4 or 5 innings for a starting pitcher. It doesn't really matter. They're saying that because it's a business model. Like, I understand not giving 7 years, $200 million to a pitcher that can easily break down. But let's not act like you're paying a guy in AJ Minter 1 year or 2 years, $20 million, $17 million, whatever it is, for 2 years, and act like they're not going to get hurt. That's still money in your budget that you're not using. And you could say, well, long-term, blah, blah, blah. But theoretically, these pitchers are going to get hurt regardless. So it's not helping your team. It's helping your bottom line. That's all it's doing. So this is a business model of why they don't want starting pitchers going deeper into games. Because if they throw 170 plus innings and, have a 2.8 ERA or lower, they're getting a huge payday. Teams don't want that. That's why they're going to this model. So for anybody that says, oh, baseball is just doing this because they believe bullpens are more important than starting pitching, nonsense. They're doing that because of a business model, because their money out of their pockets, they rather have a worse pitcher that will give you less innings, but he only cost me $10 million instead of $25 million. But there might be one time out of a month where this guy pitches a gem and everybody gets excited. Yay. And then he pitches 4 innings and 5 innings the next 3 starts in a month. Like, let's be honest of what baseball is doing. This, you hear about, like teams coming together and, collaborating and saying, hey, let's not pay this guy, or, let's not. I truly believe during the owners meetings and all this, they talk about this stuff. And I truly believe this is one of a big factor. Like, I understand the philosophy, but again, somebody's got to win and lose every game. So obviously, the team that's on top, like the Dodgers last year, everybody can be like, "Did you see what their bullpen did?" Why can't it be just luck with their bullpen? And by the way, they demolished teams offensively in the playoffs. So that's a big reason why as well. So we everybody looks at the Dodgers and be like, well, they won with a bullpen last year. Yeah, but that wasn't their plan. It just happened that way. And they got very lucky that it happened. They didn't trade for Tyler Glasnow and Jack Flaherty because they thought the bullpen was going to be the difference maker. Like, that's the idea. Let me know for a second what team that didn't have a good rotation actually made the playoffs. Right? All we were talking about when it came to like the Detroit Tigers, when they went in, they're like, oh, well, damn, look at their pitching. Right? They got to the playoffs, and it was mostly because their pitching was extremely good. But we're desensitized. Major League Baseball desensitized of what a starting pitcher is, and they brainwashed everybody. And you know what? It's good for them because they did exactly what they were trying to do. They brainwashed baseball fans into saying, well, you need good starting pitching. You need good starting pitching. You need guys that give you 170, 80 innings. Why do you think it was so important back then? Right? Because starting pitching, all right, they were getting paid good money, but they weren't going to get paid outrageous money like they are now. Understandable. But you have nobody. There's not one Met fan that can say that guy is going to give me 6 innings plus. I would say 3 out of every 4 starts. Because if you just look around the league and you look around aces in baseball, they go 6 innings. They'll occasionally go to 5 1/3, but they'll give you 6 innings. Even when they're not in their best game, they'll give you 6 innings. Yeah, but Dwayne, it's not about Stearns' philosophy. It's baseball's philosophy. And again, and when Stearns talks about this, I close I walk away or I turn the channel. Because when he talks about this, he makes it sound like it's so successful when, yeah, no shit, somebody's got to win. Like, there's no tie in baseball. Unless there's for a playoff game or a championship game or a World Series game, there's not a tie. But like, aggregated score. No. Somebody's got to win a ball game. So when a team wins, and they'll jump right to the bullpen right away. Oh, look at that. Look at what the Dodgers did. Oh, my God. Yet they spent over $250 million in that one season to bring in starting pitching. You can say, oh, well, Snell is already hurt. Sure. But you know what? Understandable. But I can assure you Snell will probably give him about 4 months of really damn good starts. Much what we can say about any of these pitchers. Is there a possibility that Griffin Cannon, Tyler McGill are going to give you 2 months, 3 months, 4 months out of a 6-month season of really good starts? Or are they going to consistently break down as they've done with their whole career? So it's not just about Stearns. Stearns is part of the problem when it comes to Major League Baseball. This has become a business plan, not a baseball plan. Don't tell me for a second that an ace doesn't matter. And people all offseason, wasn't I getting killed? You guys were in the chat. I was getting killed by a lot of people. Oh, you don't need an ace. Look what baseball is now. Yeah, because you've got brainwashed. And I'm not saying the Mets can't win this way. If they win this way, are we going to give credit to the bullpen? We're going to be, oh, look at the bullpen. Stearns is a genius. Yeah, what happened in the playoffs last year? Seriously, guys, what happened in the playoffs last year? Right? What happened in the playoffs last year? Eventually, your starting pitching broke down. And Dwayne, yeah, having a top rotation like the Phillies won what? I agree with you. But here's the difference. Right? Go back to that Philly series against the Mets. Were the Mets pitching really that good? Sure. The Phillies didn't score a lot of runs in that series. So, and it's not like the Mets actually hit the pitching, starting pitching for that matter. Have the Mets destroy their bullpen? Right? I'm talking about starting pitching. If you go back to that Phillies series, the Mets destroyed their bullpen, which is what baseball wants. Baseball wants the bullpen to be successful because it's a better business model for the organization's bottom line. But at the end of the day, you still need a guy that you can trust every fifth day. And maybe Manaea was going to be that guy. But again, didn't he just pay Manaea kind of a bargain deal? I know it's $25 million, but it's kind of a bargain deal considering what he did last year, right? You'd rather pay him $25 million, which you kind of don't know what you're going to get from him. I mean, he's had one great season in the last how many years? And now everybody wants him to be an ace. And again, maybe he is that. And maybe it's a bargain of a lifetime. But even when he does come back, you think the Mets are going to throw him 6 innings for the first month of the season? No. So great. When he comes back in June, we're not going to see him pitch 6 innings until August. Wonderful. And who knows where we'll be at that time. Hopefully where we are right now. And Stezo, I agree. It was one of the worst losses of the season. It probably is the worst loss of the season. And I was there for the walk-off on Friday. That was annoying, very annoying, by the way. And if they had a microphone on me, you would have probably been like, close your kids' ears. Like, because I was cursing up a storm in Nationals Park. I was yelling at Jeff McNeil because I'm like, dive for the ball. You got to block the ball. You have a fast guy on first base and C.J. Abrams, and you're not diving for a ball. And even if you're not thinking he's going to score, at the very least, knock the ball down so you can keep him at second base and not let him go to third. It so happened that the ball was kind of a little quicker that McNeil didn't dive for, but it was slow enough where Tyrone Taylor was. Now, he was kind of late to back up the ball, but at that moment, it was like, I don't think Tyrone Taylor was expecting McNeil not to dive. And even if Tyrone Taylor would have got there, C.J. Abrams would have probably stopped that third, maybe, but the writing was on the wall in that game. We all saw that. And again, the Mets came back in that ball game, so it didn't hurt as much as yesterday's game because that was just terrible. Saying, yeah, I am still harping on the ace. And you know what? I'm going to harp on the ace. Yeah, Stan, again, we can't trade for an ace right now. Duh. But guess what? We had an offseason of guys that you could have had. And they didn't want to spend the money, and they would rather give it to Montas and Manaea, who are both on the shelf. And Stearns always talks about, well, these guys get injured often, and giving a 7-year deal isn't smart money. Okay, but the short-term deals, guys still get hurt. So it's like, okay, like it's not like you're immune for these guys getting hurt if you give them a short-term deal. So if Manaea comes back in June, let's hope. But let's say he comes back mid-June. So great. You paid him for 3 years, but you're having him for 2.5 now. And God forbid he gets hurt again. And nobody can tell me that he's going to remain healthy, number one. Number two, nobody can tell me he's going to have the year or close to the year like he had last year. And number three, nobody can tell me that he's going to give you the length that you're going to need when your bullpen has already been shot on April 28th. So there you go. Yes, I am going to talk about the ace. Because, again, the baseball philosophy and the baseball plan is to keep the money in the pockets of the owners when it comes to starting pitching. I agree that they do get hurt. But let's not act like short-term deal pitchers don't get hurt like they're immune to it. It's a stupid concept. The fact of the matter is, I would want a guy who, yeah, you might give him 7 years, $200 million, but he'll probably give you 3 or 4 out of the 7 years. And I know that's not smart financially in baseball anymore, or at least according to everybody else and owners. But those 4 years that you got of him, and it would only be about $4 to $5 million more than what you were paying Manaea for 3 years. And you could say whatever you want about that, and that's fine. Sam, I understand that. But this is the problem that we're relying on that model now. So yes, it is something to complain about. And anybody can also think, you really think, I still don't believe David Stearns is going to give up prospects for a top line starting pitcher. And here's the other thing. Nobody, and I don't care. If you want to get me a rental that's a top line starter, I can care less. You can give a shit about the prospects that I'm worried about. All right. There's more than enough than we need. There's not many spaces on this this final roster or this 26-man roster that really needs more top prospects. Yeah, starting pitching. But again, if you want to rely on Tidwell and, you know, everybody else, every other top prospect and Sproat and all those guys, go right ahead. And, you know, maybe one of them would be great. All right. But I don't want one of those kids to come up in June where they're going to throw him 4 innings and 60 pitches a start and telling me everybody's going to get excited about that because he struck out 7 when he probably could have go 6. Like, please, let me not hear that. I just don't. Well, Dolo, that's the thing. Like, he signs retreads. He signs guys that have been injured in the bullpen, and nobody even bats an eye. Like, there's over $70 million that are on the shelf pitching-wise, from starters to bullpen. Like, that's a lot of money. Like, they're not helping your team. So, like, it's overall, I'm sorry, the philosophy doesn't work. And again, they brainwash baseball fans all over baseball. They have. They've told you giving money to starting pitching is not smart. And they'll give you every other reason other than actual money because they don't want to tell you that because that pisses fans off. So they'll tell you, well, you know, it's really more of a shortened game nowadays. The bullpen now, you got so many guys that can go multiple innings, and you know all this nonsense. Like the bullpen are untouchable and they're immune to anything. Like, could we be quite honest about that? They've made you look all like fools, including myself, when it came to starting pitching. They told you, right? We laughed at the Max Fried contract. And yeah, it might be bad 6 years from now, but I guarantee you for the next 4 years at least, you're going to get ace-like stuff. Burns, I know it was hard because he was going back home to Arizona. Understandable. But I guarantee if you would have overpaid, his ass would have came right back to New York. Right? And I'm not saying that Burns or Free would have been a difference maker. But we also have to understand that those guys give you innings. Like, we got a lot of innings from our starting pitching last year. That was a big reason why the Mets were successful. Like, let's not forget about that. The Mets had in total, I think, 568 innings in total innings from their starting pitching. Do you really think we're going to get anywhere near that? Probably not. Like, that's a lot of innings to make up from a bullpen that you're going to have to use a lot, that is already starting to be injured, and it's already breaking down on April 28th. And if you think they're not breaking down, just look at the numbers. Buto maybe had 1 or 2 good bullpen outings, maybe 3. He's been terrible ever since. Brazaban, who nobody even wanted in this bullpen, has been pretty good, and he's been giving up a little bit. Stanek, the last few outings have been not good at all. Danny Young has been better, but nobody wants him on the mound. And Diaz, we all know, is a crapshoot. Reed Garrett is probably the one guy that's probably the most stable. So, you know, that's what you're working with now. And, you know, Diaz, with that issue with the side, the hip, whatever the hell it was, they're not pitching him back-to-back days for God knows how long. But you know what? You might have to. Because are you going to trust Stanek in the 9th inning again? Probably not. So, you know, what are the Mets going to do when it comes to their bullpen? Is Nunez going to come back? I'm not sure if he's ready to come back or he's on the verge of coming back. Not really sure. But you know what? You got another lefty. You got Genesis Cabrera, who was good in spring training. Throw him out there. I'm sorry. You cannot have one lefty, and that guy's name is Danny Young. Like, I'm sorry. You just can't. So they got to figure out something. Yeah, the Kilmer. Yeah, fine. I'm glad Mendoza said that, but he's another one that is a part of the problem when it comes to overall baseball. Like, yeah, he said that, but dig a little deeper into those comments and why he's done that. Yeah, Buto. Well, I'm technically he's not going to blow a game because he's not pitching. You know, in this, I mean, he did kind of, you know, mess up the game for us, But again, there was guys after him that could have, picked him up. Like, we talked about the next guy up. Well, everybody who came up besides Braziban didn't do the job. So, yeah, at this point, would I be shocked if anybody blows a game? No. Because this is what bullpens do. We act like the bullpens have been great. And again, everybody's been fools, including myself. Somebody's got to win a ball game. Somebody's got to win the pennant. Somebody's got to win the World Series. But when that team does win the World Series, they'll always pinpoint the bullpen, just like they did against the Dodgers. But the offense of the Dodgers basically won every game. I mean, they were averaging like around 7.5 runs per game in the playoffs. But let's talk about the bullpen like it was so amazing, which they were good. But let's not act like the Mets lost to guys that you never heard of in the starting rotation. They still had Yamamoto. They still had Jack Flaherty. They still had Walker Buehler. And let's not act like one of those names the Mets couldn't have or you guys didn't want. Because it could have been a possibility for either of those guys. Now, Yamamoto chose the Dodgers, whatever it is, but you could have had Flaherty. You could have had Buehler. And I'm not saying those guys are great or by any means, or they could be. But, again, look at the innings. That's a big deal. So, well, yeah, come on. I understand that. Like, I'm not saying the Mets are done. Like, I never had that out of my mouth at all. I'm just telling you what I've been saying this from the beginning of the year. And I said this, and Mendoza's comments, which you just did, is what I complained about from the beginning of the season, because I know he said that. He also said that in spring training, what he was going to do. That does not mean it's successful. All right, 19-9 sounds like it's successful. Well, Kermit, listen, Buto struggles, but he was one of our best bullpen arms until like later in the season, but he was one of our best bullpen arms when he came up. And again, the Mets are not using him as a starter. This is the whole Seth Lugo thing all over again. Buto, get over it. I'm sick and tired of these players. Oh, well, I'm supposed to be a starter. Well, you're not on this team. Get over it. But you know what Seth Lugo did? He pitched extremely well for the Mets bullpen and never got an opportunity to start except for a couple of times with the Mets. So your role in this team is to be a bullpen arm. Hey, Jose Buto, you want to go back to the minors and just sit there? How about that? You're not starting on this team. Now, I know some people believe that he should. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If he continues to struggle, you might have to put him in the rotation. To be quite honestly, you might have to. Because if he's not helping you in the bullpen, you know he can be a starting pitcher. Let's see how good he can be. But that's your role. I hate that when he's like, oh, well, he's a starting pitcher. Too bad you're not on this team. Right? Stroman doesn't deserve to be a starting pitcher on the Yankees. He should be in the bullpen at the very least. But the Yankees are continuing to throw him out there. You know why? Because he bitches and complains. And he's going to make a big fuss. But when it comes to Buto, this is your role. Deal with it. Like, you're getting paid by the team. I'm sick and tired of these players acting like they're not getting paid by the team. Like, do your job. And Buto didn't make that excuse yesterday. Right? He said he didn't pitch well, which is obviously what happened. So, guys, we can bring in Robinson here. What is that going to do? Give us a couple of weeks of a guy who's fresh, and then when we overuse him, it's going to be the same problem. Like, let's not act like this is not going to be a problem with anybody you face, right? We knew this bullpen was going to be good, but you can't overuse him in the month of April. This is the big problem. Like, this is a big problem. And this is all throughout baseball. This is not just the Mets, by the way. The Mets are top 10 in bullpen usage, all right? That's close to the middle of the pack, but you're in the top 10. Again, somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. Well, Kimmy, I understand it, but again, when Mendoza uses his guys and he's kind of limited, let's be honest, Diaz wasn't going to be available yesterday. I'm sorry, who's the other guy? I'm trying to think right now. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was looking at the comments. So, Buto was available, obviously. But there was guys that weren't. You didn't have AJ Minter. Diaz wasn't available. So that's 2 innings right there where you're already losing out on pitchers. And that's the issue. So like, well, Dakota, I understand why Mendoza didn't use Diaz. Again, he was just coming back from whatever side issue he had. He pitched well on Saturday, but again, they're not pitching him back to back. Like, they're just not right now. The same reason why they're not pitching Kodai Senga every 5th day, because he can't. Please stop me with that nonsense too, because that's another issue that we're definitely gonna get into another day, not today. But let's be clear. The Mets are not pitching Kodai Senga every 5th day because he can't do it. Even in 2023, when he did do it, he pitched terrible, and it was very rare. Now, he's great. He's really good, or could be really good on a 6th day when he pitches, and outstanding on a 7th day. But guess what? You really can't do that. And with a 6-man rotation, again, this is what I don't understand with a 6-man rotation. What does a 6-man rotation really do? Right? They're still not going to extend these guys because they never do it with Kodai Senga. I'm not sure if Tyler McGill is going to continue this. David Peterson's coming off an injury last year. We don't know how that's going to happen. He's pitched 5 starts this year. Let's see when he gets to 10 or 11. Let's see if he can hold up and still pitch well. Like, this is the ongoing problem here. And I'm sorry. This team got off to a really good start. And look, they're still 10 games over 500. They're 4 games up in the division. Right? I'm not saying the season is over by any means. I never said that out of my mouth. But there is concerns. And if you're going to hide from it, and then when it really comes to a head, then you're going to bitch and complain about it, make sure you say I told you so, or some of us in the chat say I told you so. Explosive. Let me see. I'm trying to click on these comments, and it's not working. Okay. Oh, look at that. See? I yell at it, and it works. Well, Explosive, it's not masking his failures. It's just that David Stearns doesn't believe in paying big money to start and pitch it. Right? It's not failures in the sense of, well, because again, he's never won a championship. He's never won anything. So like, you can always go back to the fact that their pitching lacked in the postseason. Now, he's always had good bullpens. He always figures it out. But he says something about I understand, if you're Yankee fans, I understand what their fans are, they're the good fans. And he says something like, if you're a Mets fan, I don't respect you or something like that. That doesn't affect me. Like, I don't care. that doesn't affect me. Like, first off, a lot of these players were never fans of a team. Right? If you ever talk about players, they'll be a fan of 1 or 2 players that they grew up rooting for or growing up watching, but they were never fans of teams, most of them. They were fans of players that might have been in their hometown or in their state or went to the same high school or something like that, or in the same, travel league or whatever, or guys that, that they just remember growing up watching. But a lot of these guys are not a fan of the team. So they don't really know how you develop into a fan. They're most of them are like stupid when it comes to that. So I don't take that player's word for what they say when it comes to that. Well, Brad, I agree with you. I mean, yeah, that was a big reason too. The 8th inning not scoring was a huge deal. What was the bases loaded, nobody out? First and second, nobody out. Like, you gotta do better. Like, give us a run. And again, hasn't this been a common theme of the Mets offense though for 2 years now? They would have a big inning early on in the game, and they won't score anything ever since. Look, the Mets should have won the game. They scored 7 runs, so I'm not going to destroy an offense here. But when you can tack on runs, you do that because it slowly takes the motivational factor of continuing to try to, get a comeback here. A bloop and a blast basically got them back into a ball game. So that's why you always add on. And the Mets didn't do anything after, they got scored 6 out of the runs in the first inning. Then they got the 7th one in the 5th inning, if I'm not mistaken, by Torrens. So, 7 out of the 9 innings, you didn't score. And the Nationals had all game to come back. Like, that has happened a bunch over 2 seasons so far. So, yeah, Kilmer, yeah, I agree. I agree with you when it comes to that. But again, right? I'm not going to cry about an umpire. Like, the umpires have been terrible in this series, right? Some calls went our way, some calls went their way. Now, some hurt other more than others, but again, you got to overcome those things. You should expect umpires to make mistakes because they always do. We always complain about it. D-Mac, I totally agree with you. Like, I agree. Like, my dad was watching the Mets, and I just gravitated towards it. I understand. Look, we all had similar stories, right? Nobody just fell into baseball, and say, just woke up one day, I'm a Mets fan. No, it happens gradually. And I grew up when the Mets were terrible. So, like, how did I become a Mets fan? Like, so, like, when I really got into the baseball, what was it, like 93, 94? Like, what was I so excited about? Generation K? Like no. I didn't even know what that was really at 4 or 5 years old. So yeah, I completely understand. Explosive, I agree with you. Wow, these comments are clicking all of a sudden. That's great to see. So yeah, I agree. And that's what Alvarez is good at, especially with the Latin players, for sure, 100%. Alvarez seemed to do an excellent job, especially with Diaz. Like, I think Gary Cohen talked about that on the broadcast. If I'm not mistaken, again, I was at the game, but he did go out there, and I think I watched a replay of it, and he said it. But yeah, I agree with you. That's what Alvarez does very well. All right, let's see. Well, Kermit, this was the first game where it was like the game one of the series on Friday. The Mets came back, so it was kind of momentum on the Mets, and that game just obviously just happened the way it did. I wasn't annoyed because I was at the game, but it was a game we should have lost because we didn't play well, and a couple of bad mistakes by Washington kind of got us back into the ball game. So, but this game, prototypical Mets losing this game. Like, this was a trend. Where this was a moment where I guarantee Mets fans were like, Mets are gonna Mets. Like, this is a Mets loss that we've seen before, right? We felt this and we dealt with this before. So it's a reminder. Hey, this is why Mets fans humble themselves sometimes with games like this, because it's like everything was going so well. We won yesterday on Saturday. I mean, and he's like, oh, all right, we're good. Nice. All right, let's get it today. And then, we scored 6 runs in the first inning. We're like, look, I'm not even gonna lie. When it was 7-1, I just got home from DC, so I drove for about 4.5 hours. So I went to go take a nap. I woke up, it was 7-6, and I'm like, oh shit. And it's never good. So I took a nap. I was tired. I woke up early. I drove back home, and I was like, and I went to sleep after it was 7-1, or the 5th inning or something like that. I was like, I'm going to bed. I'm going to take a little nap, wake up, and see what happens with the game, because I know there was a lot of playoff basketball and hockey, so I wanted to watch that too, the later games. So that's what I did. I woke up. It was 7-6. I think it was the 8th inning, if I'm not mistaken, 7th or 8th inning, something like that. And I watched the rest of it, and I was like, that didn't work out so well, but it is what it is. Let's see. Better to have a game like this in April. Yes, there's all. See, I don't like that comment, because it's the same thing with like, well, it's only April. It doesn't matter. But these games matter. Like, especially when, look, the Braves, look how fast they jumped up. But they won, 7 of 8, 7 of 9. So, like, these games matter. You don't want to have these games in April. Of course, you don't have them in September. But they mean the same thing. Like, just because we got 32 games left doesn't mean, that these games don't matter. They do. Like, they can affect you. This game could affect you in September, when you might have to win a game in September, and we're talking about, well, we shouldn't have lost that game in September. God damn. Can't lose those games now. Well, if you go back to games like this, like yesterday, it means something. If the Mets were 9-19, you would care about April, right? But because we're 19-9, nobody cares. Oh, it's April. Great. I'm glad we got off to a good start. Like, when the Mets were, 11 games under in early May, and they were 0-5 to start the season, people gave a shit about April. like, it's not a death sentence, but you can really make it hard to make the playoffs. Like, the reason why I believe the Mets eventually broke down in the playoffs was because they were fighting from the end of May until the end of the season to make the playoffs. And that eventually, those pitchers you probably wanted to take out in the fifth inning, you had to keep out there because you needed to win a ball game. And this is why it's frustrating, because when it's necessary, when it's absolutely necessary, they'll throw them out there. But when it's a game like yesterday, or a game like a day where it's like, all right, you threw 79 pitches, let me take you out of the ball game, and you still got to use 3 bullpen arms. It makes no sense to me, ever. Kill me. I completely understand that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you are a Philly fan. But again, it's not like your comments are wrong. But what I'm saying is the fact that we know every team has these losses. Every time, every fan base overreacts. But I'm not overreacting about the game. If you haven't noticed, I haven't really talked about much about the game. I'm talking about the situation that led to this, that was a concern of mine from day one. And again, I don't know how many videos you watch, how many live pregame shows, or even off-season shows right before the season. This was my biggest concern. Overusage of the bullpen, because the starters either weren't let to go deeper into ball games, or didn't or couldn't go deeper into ball games. Now, that's blame on both sides. I'm not just blaming Mendoza, and I'm not just blaming the pitching. I'm blaming both, because it leads to this. It's April 28th, and we have one of our top lefties in our bullpen that has a lat strain, which who couldn't foresee him not getting injured with the tough injury that he had to deal with last year. Like, duh. Now, again, Stearns has found a way to put bullpens together. So I'm not concerned overly about the bullpen, because he'll throw guys down with options, bring healthy guys and fresh arms up, like Nunez and probably Cabrera at some point, and refresh the bullpen a little bit. But again, they're going to get overused at some point too, because that's just what they do, what baseball does now, and it's frustrating because again, somebody's got to win in baseball, and then the team that wins, they glorify about the bullpen, and it's annoying. Everybody spoke about the Dodger bullpen last year in the playoffs, but not even in the same breath talked about that the Dodger offense was scoring 7.5 runs per game in the postseason until they got to the World Series. But again, we act like they were throwing, guys like me and you coming out of the stands. It was still Yamamoto. It was still Jack Flaherty. It was still Walker Buehler. Like, who did the Mets have? Shohei was the only one. Like, we couldn't wait for Quintana because he was our best pitcher in the postseason. Like, could we be honest here and act like this isn't the Major League Baseball and the owners completely brainwashing fans across the world that starting pitching does not matter and the bullpen does? And I'm going to say it one last time before we talk about the lineup and the pitching matchup real quick. They've done this because it helps their bottom line. There is no other reason why it's not more successful, because, again, somebody's got to win the ball game. It's not more successful because if it was, then bullpen guys would be getting paid a tremendous amount of money. That's a 6th inning guy. But they know that you could spend $20 million, you could spend $30 million on a bullpen. And it can be good, but they're going to get overused. You're still using depth in your minors because of player options. And if they do get overused, you just switch guys from the minors and bring them up. And that's how they save money. It's a business plan. So that's great. And when you got multiple guys, and it can be successful for a little while, when you got multiple guys that can pitch multiple innings, those guys that might pitch 2 innings and say, let's say 35, 40 pitches, they're not pitching the next day. And another reason why that is not always successful, because if you have one bad guy that comes out of that bullpen and doesn't do well, it sets up a disaster going forward. And again, the test was with this bullpen, that 13-day stretch of no days off. And go figure, right after those 13 days, they started to break down a little bit. They weren't as good. They were okay, but they weren't as good. They were giving up some hits, giving up some runs. Diaz didn't look great. Brazabrand had a little struggle. Budo, Diaz, like it's not just a coincidence. It's obvious. And again, baseball has brainwashed us so much to have arguments about it. So Brian Kenny can go on MLB Central every day and talk about analytics, and he's the worst of the bunch. So, because he's the one that believes that you shouldn't pay starting pitching and just use the bullpen. So he's part of the problem, and baseball also brainwashed the fans. So overall, this is not a death sentence to the Mets because every team goes through it. But when you don't have to do it, and there is people out there to get that can help you with the starting pitching, that can give you length, don't tell me about the trade deadline. Like, I know we can't do nothing until mid-June, mid-July to late July. Understandable. But there was guys out there you could have got. Stearns didn't want to spend the money over the years. A lot of people agree with that. A lot of Met fans in this chat agreed with that. But when Shomania, who you gave $25 million to, is on the shelf, which all offseason, when we signed Mania, I wanted him back, but I wanted somebody bigger. What did I say? We don't know how his body's going to react to changing his windup, changing his whole motion that he hasn't done his entire career, and that many innings that he hasn't thrown in 3.5 to 4 years. And you think that's not going to have an impact? It always takes a full year. The same way where I talk about it takes a team a full year to adjust to a hitter or a pitcher, because that's just what happens. It takes a full year. Like, if you couldn't project that, how can you not know that? He completely changed his windup, his motion, everything he ever knew about pitching, he's changed. Started to throw harder, which is always a death sentence, and hasn't thrown that many innings in 3.5 years. What do you think was going to happen? He's not immune to it because he's wearing orange and blue. And I've said that, and many of you have been in this channel for a while. Everybody knew I was saying it. So it's not like I didn't want him back, but I wanted better with Mania. There was no reason why you couldn't get a Burns or Fried with Mania. So overall, you gave Montez 2 years and Mania 3 years. Both of them combined, they're going to miss a full year, with each of them missing 2 or 3 months apiece. So if you really think about it, that's 5 years of 2 different pitchers that aren't as good as Max Fried or Corbin Burns, who were getting, 7 or 8 years? So what do you have to give a pitcher 3 more years? And you're probably going to get the same amount of success, if not much better, over the same amount of time you have Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas, and there's no guarantee they're going to be even close to being better than those guys. So it's not that much. But overall, it's still not about just – it's again, everybody's talking about, it's only 2 games. I'm not talking about the game, right? The Mets should have won that game regardless of how bad the bullpen was. The fact of the matter is that when you come to July and August, I don't want to hear nobody talk about the bullpen because I all told you about it. Overall, I'm not worried about this team because the Mets are still finding ways to either win series or split series, as we hope they do today, and continue to do what they need to do. And that's with the offense still kind of struggling, right? Juan Soto hasn't really done much, even though he's got a couple of hits here and there. Yesterday the defense didn't help out really much. The pitching wasn't good. So overall, it was like it was a team effort of a loss. Like, let's be honest about that. Yeah, Blackburn, the same thing. Like, where is he? So these are situations where it's like you're spending over $100 million on 2 pitchers that in Manaea and Montas that are not pitching. So that's $100 million that is not pitching right now. And if you want to do just the math on a year, that's almost $40 million for 1 year for 2 pitchers that are not pitching. Last time I checked, Max Fried and Corbin Burns are pitching. And how much did they cost? But they pitch every 5th day. They give you 170 plus innings, and they give you great starts most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. And again, a lot of Met fans didn't care for that. David Stearns really does not. So again, I'm upset by that, but ultimately they should have still won the game. Like Friday was kind of a hit or miss because, again, we were losing most of the game. We came back with a couple of bad plays by the Nationals, and the Mets took advantage of it. And again, you can't make silly mistakes because you can play the Marlins, you can play the Nationals. You got to find a way to lose games. I don't care how good you are. So overall, am I overly concerned about the entire team? No, because I still think they're going to be very good because at the end of the day, everybody uses their bullpen way too much. So, and again, somebody's got to win a ball game. And the Mets a lot of times have been the benefit of that. We talked about the Phillies when we swept them. Why did the Phillies have so many problems? You know why? Because their starting pitchers were getting knocked out of the game early, which is kudos to the Mets, and they had to go to their bullpen that's not as good as their starting pitcher. And the Mets took full advantage of it. But somebody tell me that the bullpen is more important than the starting pitcher. Because again, right, the Phillies have been winning divisions and they've been making the playoffs, and we'll see if that's a way. Again, they haven't won a World Series, but again, I think a lot of luck has to be involved with teams. Like, I truly believe that. Like, honestly, like the Arizona Diamondbacks made the World Series a couple of years ago, and it was like, how did they do that? Right? So I think it's a lot of crapshoots and a lot of, and again, Major League Baseball playoffs now are a crapshoot now. They never used to be. It used to be the better team usually almost always won. It's like the NBA. Once in a blue moon, you'll have, a team that's not as good win, and it's shocking and it shocks the world. But baseball's not like that, and baseball's like the NHL playoffs now. Anybody can win at any given moment. So, and I think there's a lot of factors to that. So, unfortunately, we lost yesterday, but we can salvage a series. Don't lose 3 out of 4. I don't care what you got to do. Like, there's no reason. And again, this is the problem. We're potentially, possibly could lose a series today in this 4-game set, and we got Griffin Cannon going. Like, I don't know if that spills enthusiasm or oozes enthusiasm out of you guys. It doesn't for me. I don't trust him. I don't care. I just don't care. I don't think he's that good. Everybody can say, well, he pitched better. Well, great. So he got from a 5.4 ERA to a 4.5 ERA, and we're so excited. Like, come on, guys. Like, we're better than that. I know we are. So I don't know where we're going to get from Griffin Cannon, right? This is a Nationals team that got a good couple of young players, good prospect. We know Abrams, Wood, Ruiz, Cruz, Tenya, even Young for that matter. They got a lot of good young players, right? I still think they're about maybe even a year or two away from really being a problem in the division, but they're still a high strikeout team. They're a team that makes mistakes. The Mets lost yesterday because there was mistakes by the pitching. Walking guys. There was fielding errors. There was bad defense. Like, I don't care who you play. If you play a well-rounded game and play good fundamentals, you'll beat the bad teams. Because no matter how bad you are, if you give them enough mistakes and make enough errors and make it don't play the fundamental baseball, they'll find a way to win. Play fundamental baseball against these teams and they'll be okay. Like, yeah, I'm not excited about that at all. I'm not. Like, let's be honest. Everybody's innings are down. Like, please. Like, I just don't really care for Griffin Cannon. I don't. I think he'll be okay, but I mean, I'm just not excited about that at all. With his 3.12 ERA, wonderful. I still don't trust him. I just don't. So, yeah, he fits again. Great. Let me see him do it through 30 starts because he's never done it in his career. All right, he's never done it. He had one of the worst pitchers that pitched 30 starts last year and pitched 170 innings. Like, let me see him do it through a whole season. Like, this is the same thing with Tyler McGill, that Met fans, are basically blowing him for pitching well for a month and a half, which he's always done. Like, nobody wants to talk about history, but McGill has done that his entire career, where he'll pitch good for a month and a half in April into May, and then be terrible for 3.5, almost 4 months. And then in September, he'll show up again. And that's because Mets have injuries, so he has to go into the rotation. Like, that's the problem. Same thing with Griffin Cannon. He's never been good in his career. He was not good last year. And we're going on for 5 or 6 starts, and we're putting this guy, in Cy Young territory here. Because his numbers, ERA-wise, are Cy Young territory. But come on. He'll end up with a 4.5 ERA, just like all these guys always do. Yeah, okay, Patrick. Okay, but what about June? What about July? And what about August? It was probably over a 6. All right. The reason why his ERA wasn't extremely high was because he had a first month and a half of the season that was excellent, a really damn good September, which lowered his ERA. Like, Tyler McGill is not consistent. That's why his ERA is not a 6, and it's ended up being a 4.2 or a 4.3. Because in the middle of the season, Tyler McGill is one of the worst pitchers in baseball. Last time I checked, baseball 6 months, not 3. That's the problem. Yeah, Kermit, you're nuts. All right. McGill has had the pitching lab last year. Same problem in his career. Pitch well in the beginning, pitch well at the end, terrible in the middle. Again, 2.5 months, give or take, very good. And then the middle months from June until August are like god awful. Cannon made philosophy changes. All right, calm down with that, okay? Let's see. Let him do it through a whole year, and then we can have a conversation. McGill still hasn't done this the whole year throughout his Mets tenure. So, yeah. Patrick, you can go away. I don't care. No, Patrick, but I'm not talking about the season as a whole. I'm telling you, we're acting like Tyler McGill is Corbin Burns or Max Fried. You're nuts. Let's see. The offense and the defense are the biggest. Easy. I agree with you. I do agree with you. But have you noticed in this series what has been the problem? The bullpen. And this was going to be a problem. And again, you don't have to, because again, you got brainwashed like the rest of us. When Major League Baseball teams have told you that bullpens matter more than starting pitching, they fooled you, they fooled me, because they don't want to pay big money to start and pitching. And their bottom line is more important than actually winning games. And if they win games, great, we fooled you. Oh, Ray, a ton of positives. We're 19-9. We're 4 games up in the division. But again, too many Met fans are acting like there's not concerns on his team. And then when it really does come to a head, then we're like, oh, what happened? And they'll act stupid. I'm not going to be one of those guys. Now, I say a lot of dumb shit, and I completely agree with that. But come on, guys. Haven't I been saying about this? The bullpen has been overused. They're top 10 in baseball in usage. Why do you think this wasn't going to happen? LFGM, I agree. Right? The bullpen has been overused. And again, we got Minter's hurt now, so shit. Now we got Danny Young. I know everybody's excited to see Danny Young every time out of the bullpen. Oh, easy. I agree. That was so bad. And I brought that up earlier in the show. That was again, I talked about the runs, right? They scored 7 runs. They need to win the ball game. All right. I don't care who's on the mound. They need to win that ball game. So the bullpen scored 7 runs yesterday. If you want to get on the offense, go ahead. But the bullpen and the starting pitching, McGill had a 6-run lead. The bullpen had a 5-6-run lead at times. They got to finish the job. If they can't hold a 5-6-run lead, then what are we talking about here? They scored 7 runs. They need to win that ball game. That's pitching. Sorry. Like, come on, guys. Like, let's not act like, they scored 3 runs each game in this series, and we're talking about the offense. They've scored 5 runs. let's see. Okay, they scored 4 runs, 2 runs. Okay, not great, but they scored 4 runs. Not terrible. And that was when they didn't score anything for a while, but they did. They scored 7 runs yesterday. All right, 7. All right, the pitcher was outstanding on Saturday. Wonderful. They scored 7 runs yesterday. Like, they need to win that ball game. You don't want to blame the pitching. Don't blame the pitching. But the pitching lost yesterday. We can blame the offense when we lost games. We'll blame the offense. But the offense doesn't deserve to get beat up yesterday when they scored 7 runs. But the good news is we can split a series, right? Let's split this series, right? I think we should have won. Well, obviously we should have won yesterday. We all believe that. We should be talking about going into this 3 out of 4. So split this series and head back home to face a very good Arizona team. Now, the lineup today, I actually like this lineup. It's pretty good, right? I don't like McNeil in center field, but hey, the Mets do. So, you can't say anything bad about them because then you get ridiculed. So why McNeil's in center field still? They don't trust Acuna in center field. That's the only thing I can think of. So you got Lindor, you got Soto, you got Alonso, Winker in the cleanup spot, DH and Vientos third base. Thank God Nimmo's in a 6 hole because I can't see him in a cleanup spot anymore. And again, anybody that wants to defend Nimmo, I told you that 3 years ago. Don't trust him ever. Like, he's not the same player anymore. He changed his philosophy of hitting, and he's basically a fringe major leaguer at this point, the way he plays. Like, it's just that bad. Offense. Defense is still hanging on for dear life. He's made a couple of good catches, but I don't know where, you want to talk about a bad contract? Nimmo's one of them. So hold me on the pitching contracts because that's terrible. And Stearns didn't do that, but Nimmo, terrible contract. We got Alvarez. We got McNeil in center field. We got Acuna. I like the lineup. I don't like McNeil in center field, but they'd rather have McNeil in center field than Acuna. I don't know why. Well, yeah, Dakota, I think I would trust Acuna at second base as well, but McNeil's not a center fielder. He's barely a corner outfielder. So, again, I don't know. Like, Trevor Williams, he's okay. Like, can we beat them up? Like, I understand that. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I'm just checking something really quick. Trevor Williams, he's pitched. He has a 5.1 ERA this year. Like, he has over a 5 ERA in 5 starts. Could we beat him up? Now, again, there's people complaining in the comments about the offense yesterday. I understand the 8th inning sucked. But, again, you were up by 6 runs. You were up by 6 runs. And then you were up by 5 runs. And then you were up by 3 runs. And then 2 runs. Like, they had opportunities to stop the bleeding pitching-wise. Somebody has to show up pitching-wise. Like, I'm not blaming the offense for scoring 7 runs and losing. Now, I agree. They had opportunities to add on. But he scored 7 runs. He had a 6-run lead multiple times, and he had a 2-run lead, and he had a 1-run lead. Nobody can protect it. So, like, I mean, the pitching deserves the blunt of the blame yesterday. Like, if the Mets would have scored 3 runs and they scored them all in the first, and then that was it, we can go on that. Buster, I tend to agree with Soto. I do. Like, he's not driving the ball much at all. Losing a ball in the sun isn't the best thing in the world, but again, he's not earning the $765 million. But again, he has the most runs on the team. Pete Alonso has the most RBIs on the team because of the fact that Soto's on base all the time for him. So he gets on base, which is not what we completely want from Juan Soto, but he's batting in the 2-hole. And what he needs to do at this moment when he's not playing well is getting on base for the guy who's actually driving him in Pete Alonso. So he's got to be much better, hell of a lot better. But what he's doing in the 2-hole are a 2-hole hitter's best day. Right now, Soto struggling is what a 2-hole hitter is supposed to do when they're at their best, and that is getting on base. by any means necessary. Now, he's nowhere near where we need him to be. Like, I'm going to make that clear. But it's not like he's not getting on base either. If he was not getting on base, one, Alonso wouldn't have that many RBIs, number one. Number two, then I would be concerned. But because he's getting on base, he's still getting, his singles. He's still putting the bat on the ball for the most part. He's getting on base. At the very least, when a guy struggles, I need him to get on base because there's somebody behind you that's hopefully doing well. And Soto's at least doing that. Right? And it's the funniest thing. Met fans, where's the protection? Right? Not one Met fan all year talked about Pete Alonso's protection. I love it. Last year, that's all you talked about. This year, he still doesn't have protection. Vientos hasn't been as good. Winker's not as good. Nimmo's terrible. And Pete Alonso's having a great year, so it's clearly not the protection. It's about the player. And Pete Alonso has been excellent this year. Now, finally he made a bad throw to first, but again, that was a rough one. I'm not going to get him on that because that game was over before we even, he even made that throw. Like, it was the writing on the wall. But overall, Juan Soto, in his struggles, have been on base basically more than anybody on the Mets. And again, I want him to bat 270, 275. I would like to have more home runs, more RBIs, absolutely. But if this is the worst of Juan Soto, that's a good sign. Because that's crazy. Because there's some people that think Soto has been terrible. He hasn't been. He's not as good as I want him to be. But if he was almost a complete zero and not even getting on base, then I would start to worry. But I'm not. Because when the big moments happen, the guy always shows up. He did it with the Nationals. He even did it with the Padres in the playoffs. And we know what he did last year with the Yankees. The Yankees would have never got through the playoffs into the World Series if it wasn't for Juan Soto. Easy, I do agree with you about that. I think Buto has a hard time with runners on base. Him in the clean inning, he seems to settle in. I do agree with that. But again, as good as we begin a lot of credit to Mendoza for the usage of the bullpen, the way he's used the bullpen, not the usage, because I think that's a problem that is just baseball related, not just him. He's got to know that Buto has problems with men on base. But again, he didn't have Minter. He didn't have Diaz yesterday. So he was trying to use Buto in the perfect spot. That wasn't a bad spot for Buto. But again, when McGill kind of, struggled a tad. Give me a second, guys. I just want to make sure of something really quick. Shit. Hold on. I'm sorry, guys. I just want to see something really quick. I want to see the box score just to see. When Buto came in, that was when McGill was starting to, flounder a little bit. Again, he threw 6 1/3, so I'm not going crazy over Tyler McGill. But, he could have used Brazaban. But, again, Brazaban has been really good this year. But he does have control issues that in his career. So you worry about that with runners on. So who are you going to bring in? Stanek, you had to hold to the 9th because he was the only chance in the 9th inning to have somebody close the game. With no Minter, no Diaz, Stanek was the last one standing. So other than Brazaban in that spot, who are you going to go to other than Buto? Could you go to Reed Garrett? Sure, I guess, but I again, guess who's going to come in for Griffin Cannon today? Reed Garrett's going to probably throw 2 innings. So he was probably trying to save Reed Garrett for today. Because Griffin Cannon will probably go 4 innings, maybe 5. So Reed Garrett's probably going to come right after him and throw 2 innings. So that's the problem. So there was really not many people to go to, but again, whoever was out there, you had a 3-run lead, you had a 2-run lead, you had a 1-run lead. Save the game. Well, easy. I think at the moment, because of that hip issue or that side issue that he had the other day, they're not going to, again, you can't lose Diaz, guys. Like, I understand that you wanted to see him out there yesterday, but again, haven't you learned anything from the Mets? They are not taking no chances at all. They aren't doing that with Kodai Senga. They're not doing that with most of their starting pitching. They're not doing that with most of their bullpen guys. Minter wasn't pitching back-to-back days. Let's see, who was the other one? They weren't doing it for Diaz earlier on in the season. They did it once or twice a week ago or so. But that was when Diaz was, we presumed healthy. But since that happened, again, you can't lose another bullpen arm, especially Diaz. Because we realized Stanek all of a sudden can't be a closer. Minter, who was your other option, is not on the team right now because of injury. So you've had three guys that, and we talked about this prior to the season. When you got Stanek, when you got Minter, when you got Diaz, you have a closer almost every day. Well, guess what? Minter's done for at least a little while. Diaz wasn't available because they're not pitching them back-to-back days yet. Maybe that will change. Who knows? So you only had Stanek. So that's one less person you could throw in the 7th or 8th inning because you need Stanek to close. Nobody's throwing Danny Young out there in the 9th. So there's the problem. Rayleigh's not going to be ready probably until, God knows, probably later in the season. And that's an if because we don't know. You never know how these guys are coming back overall. So we got Griffin Cannon on the mound. He's pitched well. I still don't trust him. Again, 5 starts is not going to make me vote for him for the Cy Young, or even make him be a good pitcher. Like, I think we need to calm down just a little bit. Dwayne, I'm not sure if Kranick is going to go 2 today. Because didn't he pitch on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken? I could be wrong. Again, when you're at the game, you kind of in the game, but you kind of everything else is going on. So, like me, I'm looking at the fielders, where they're playing and all that. So, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he pitch on Saturday? Let me see. Hold on. Didn't he pitch on Saturday? I thought he pitched on maybe Friday. Did he pitch Saturday? Yeah. All right. So he pitched 2 in the 3rd. So not terrible. But oh my God, look at that. We won 2-0 on Saturday, which was cool. But I mean, my God, Clay Holmes, like everybody's, oh my God, Clay Holmes, he pitched 5 innings. You use Young, Garrett, Minter, Kranick, Diaz. Use 5 pitchers. And I'm going to stop with that because that's ridiculous. We won the game. That was great. But we used 5 pitchers yesterday when it started with 5 innings when he was pitching well. Like, it's so annoying. Easy. Well, they have bullpen arms. Like, I think Nunez is going to be ready soon, but you got Genesis Cabrera that pitched well in spring training. Bring those guys up. Like, how long are you going to play with Nunez in the minors? Like, is he healthy or not? Like, bring him up. If he's healthy, bring him up. What are we waiting for here? We need help in this bullpen. If nobody believes that, you're nuts. You got Stanek falling off the rails. You got Brazaben who's doing well. You got Budo who's lost. So you got 2 guys in your bullpen you can't trust right now. You got Reed Garrett who's still good. You got Brazaben who can fall off at any moment, and you got Danny Young, and Kranick who's been good. Like, let's go. But we'll see. Again, you got the same bunch of guys today in the bullpen. So, again, we need Griffin Cannon to go 6 innings. Like, could we stop with all this nonsense? Go fucking 6 innings. This is the Washington Nationals here. Go 6 innings and pitch well. We need a length out of your starting pitching. Your bullpen is struggling right now. You got 1 guy injured. We don't know about Diaz. We don't even know if he can go. Who the hell knows? Stanek ain't going to pitch. Buto ain't going to pitch. So we're very limited here. You might see Kranick and Buto today, hopefully. And there's a strong possibility Danny Young. So those 3 guys are going to go in this game. So if you can get 6 innings out of Griffin Cannon, maybe that's all you need today instead of 5 guys. We won 2-0 on Saturday, and we needed 5 guys to finish the game. It's ridiculous. 6 innings from Griffin Cannon. Right? I can't do a post game today. I do apologize. But if we win today and Griffin Cannon gives you 5 innings, couple of strikeouts, 1 or 2 runs, a lot of people are going to say good start. It might be a good start. But ultimately, you got to use more guys in the bullpen. And win or lose, it's going to hurt your bullpen. So overall, guys, let's see if the Mets can split the series. Then we go back home. We got Trevor Williams on the mound, which, again, could we hit Trevor Williams, please? He's pitched well against the Mets for the most part. ever since he left the Mets. Griffin Canning, give me 6 innings today. The bullpen needs you. Like, give us 6 innings. Offense, how about another 6-7 runs? See if the pitcher can hold up this time. Right? Because we can blame the offense all we want. They scored 7 runs yesterday. They've been the biggest culprit for the most of the season. But they gave you what you needed yesterday in 7 runs. You got to hold it. See if the lineup can score some more runs and see if the pitching can hold it. And again, the Nationals are pesky, right? They don't give up, and nor should they. They're a young team. There's a lot of motivation for trying to play hard every single day, and they showed it. This whole series, they made mistakes, but they played hard as hell. And they're a young team. They're always dangerous because again, a bloop and a blast. You saw yesterday. Those kids don't give up at bats. So you got to shut them down. Griffin Canning, let's go. Offense, let's go. Guys, I can't do a post game today, but I will see you tomorrow for pre and post. When the Mets, I think they play tomorrow, right? They do play tomorrow, right? I'm correct about that, right? Yeah, they do. Sorry, guys, I'm off track. I went to DC and I lost track of days. So let's get the win. Let's split the series and head back home to face Arizona, guys. So with that said, guys, thank you for tuning into the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and on X. Chris, I know you're at the game right now. Hopefully it's a better game than yesterday because that's a brutal game to go to. I thought I went to a brutal game on Friday. Yours was worse. Hopefully you have a good day today. Enjoy the nice weather. Enjoy the sun. Enjoy a baseball game. Let's go Mets, guys. And let's get a W, guys. Have a good day, guys. Enjoy the game.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, repping both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Hear 'em all loud.